Good morning, student. This is the part 3 of our history chapter number 1, the French Revolution. In the second part of this chapter, we will discuss about the Jacobin government and how they can control over the French kingdoms and how they try to reforms in the French societies. In this part, we will discuss some the conditions that happened in the France after the Jacobin government fall. So after the Jacobin government falls, when their rulers Robespierre were gotten by the court, then there will be also a control of a middle class wealthier class. Middle class who have a much wealthier than the lower class set a control over the kingdom or the powers of France. So they tried to introduce a new constitutions in the France, and they also got success in that. Under the new constitution of France that are introduced by the middle class or the new government have the provisions for the dictatorship and 2 legislative councils. These legislative councils are elect the dictatories. Dictatories have 5 members. So under the new constitutions, there will be also a try to introduce a decentralization of powers, because the France have to feel that if the powers are under the control of one person, like in the Jacobin government, they will be try to become another monarch. So from learning from their experience of a past, they set the rule to decentralize the powers. So powers of France was divided within the legislative councils and dictatories. Dictatories have 5 members. These members are elected and removed by the legislative councils. So these provisions also establish a political instabilities in France, because whenever the legislative council members tries to remove any dictatorial members, he sets always conflict with the legislative councils. He is not willing to remove. So conditions of France are still unstable. And after some time, in the 1805, the Napoleon take the advantages of this and set the controls over the France. Now we have a women revolutions and their participation. Women always try to participate active roles. When they set a wars with the Austria and Prussia, the women always plays active roles in France. That time they also use their powers. They also set to work on the place of men. So from the histories, women of the France always plays active roles, but they always want that the revolutions provides them the new introductions, new measures, and they try to improve their life. So mostly the women of third estates related to the seamstresses, laundries, and the sold of flowers, selling of fruits, selling of vegetables in the market. But some of the women also work at doing the domestic works on the houses of noble families. Even the women have no right for the education. No training for the jobs are provided to them. They are not own their business. They have no small business. Just they work in their business. But whenever only there is a condition, the third estates, wealthier families, daughters have the right to education. But after the education, they are get arranged marriage according to their families. And after the marriage, the women work to care their families. They always cook the food, fetch the waters, and stands in the long queues for the bread because there will be always a shortage of bread, and always take care of our families. And revolutionaries, they set their political clubs in the France. The main political clubs related to the women powers are the Society of Revolutionary and the Republican Women. These are the main political clubs of a woman during that periods. And after some time, the women demanded the political rights, because their time the women do not have a political participation. They do not have the right to vote. They have no political right. But after some time, or during the periods of national assemblies, they get the social right. They didn't have a right to vote, because they are counted in the passive citizens. So they didn't have a right to vote and other political right. But then the Jacobin governments, they again demanded for their political rights. Some of the women are executed during this time, but they struggle to get their political rights, and they are success. They got success, and that is the time of 1946. Then the women of France get their political rights. And this was the successful mantra of a woman. And look at the pictures. That is the main woman who tries his best for the political rights of for the women in France. That is Olympie de Gouges, who set their life from the 1748 to 1793. She works as a political agent for the various agencies. She worked hard to provide the women for their political rights. She even write for the Queen and the members of the National Assembly to provide the women of the political rights. Even when there was a declaration of a right for the man, declaration of a rights of a man and citizen, she demanded declarations of a right to women and citizen. And she was, during the period of Jacobin government, she was executed. But his works wonder, and finally the woman gets the right to vote and other political rights. This was the story of Olympie de Gouges. Now we have a slavery system. From the beginning of a human race, there was a slavery. But in the France, there will be some colonial Caribbean colonies. Mainly, they have three Caribbean colonies. They have Montagues, they have San Diegos, and Guadeloupes. These Caribbean colonies were main supply of tobacco, indigo, sugar, and coffees. Then there will be also a shortage of labor, because in the colonies are too much far from for providing a hard labor for plantations, and to provide the laborers, they always use the slaves. They always use the triangular trade route for the slaves providing. This route is connected with Europe, Africa, and Americas. First of all, they start from Paradox and Nantes. That are the main places of sea coast places of France. From they route towards the African coast. There they met the tradesman or the tribesman who provides them a slave to pick the slaves from them. Then there will be a 3 months vacation, and after the completion or after the travels from Antarctica, they reach again in the Europe. After this, they sold the labor, the slaves, to the owners of a plantation. These owners always exploitations to their slaves. But there will be always a demand to end up the slaveries in France, because during the period of a declaration of rights for the citizens, the peoples of France feels that the slaves also have the right to get the some of the life. They also have the right. They also have to right of a life. They always want to abolish the slavery systems in France. But during the period of a National Assembly, they wanted to abolish, but during the some conditions, they didn't end up this, because the middle class didn't allow them to abolish it. But when there will be times of a Jacobin government, they end up the slavery system from France first time in the 1794. But after some time, when Napoleon set the rules by taking the advantage of political instabilities in France, he set again. He used the slaves and marched them towards Europe and provided these slaves for the plantation laborers, to indigo planters and other planters, because at that time the France have a large demand for a labor. But after the continuation criticisms of our slavery systems in the France, finally 1848, the slavery system was totally abolished and from the French colonies. Now, how the revolutions of France affect the life of a person, everyday life. First, there will be a censorship, because during the period of 18th century, there will be a Louis XVI rules who have the interference in the each and every works of France. But national assemblies and the introductions of new constitutions end up the monarch systems, end up the censorship. Every person have its own rights, and the new constitutions provided by the national assemblies declares the right of a freedom to man and citizens. Declaration of rights to man and citizens sets a new hope for the citizens of France. That is, they have the right to speech, they have a right for a life, they have a right to conduct any work, they also have a freedom for the press, because now they can criticize the government sector. They also criticize the policies of our legislators, executive, and there will be also freedom for the philosophers to provide the best literatures, provide the best things from the all over world to the France. Then there will be a period of Napoleon. This period starts in the year of 1804, when Napoleon controlled the political conditions of France and declared himself a new king. He also wants to introduce some of the reforms. He started a new weight and measures related to the domestic system. He also protect the private properties and uniform systems for the weighting and measuring by the domestic. But in the wars of Waterloo, with the hands of British, the Napoleon was defeated, and by this defeat, the French society was changed. And now the France feels that they didn't want another monarch. They want to establish a democracy. They want to continue the rights for the French societies. Thank you.